Welcome to the Financial Freedom Secrets Show. This is your host, Jackson Milan, the Wealth Mentor, helping business owners create financial freedom faster by mastering the language of money. Want to see how well you're tracking towards financial freedom? Complete our 40-point financial performance scorecard at wealthhealthcheck.com.au. That's wealthhealthcheck.com.au. The average score for most business owners is 18 out of 40. So complete the scorecard now and see how well you're tracking towards financial freedom. G'day guys, Jackson Milan, the Wealth Mentor here, and we're here for another episode of Financial Freedom Secrets podcast. And I have a new friend of mine who was introduced to me through a high-level mastermind group that I'm in. I saw his name popping up here, there, and everywhere, and I'm like, I need to connect with this guy. He's the type of person that I really need to have in my circle of influence. We caught up, we hit it off, and he's already added so much value to me, and I know he's going to add so much value to our community. So I've got my good friend Keith Abraham here. How you doing, my friend?
Yeah, great, Jackson. Thanks for the opportunity to hang out with you on your podcast as well. And you're right, we've sort of connected and we just speak the same lingo and we get this whole process around helping people to be the best versions of themselves, whether that's around their wealth, their health, their goals, their direction, their career, their business. I love what you do in helping people truly optimize and elevate themselves to the next level when it comes to that financial piece. So thanks for the opportunity.
No, it's fantastic, mate. I think we're all in the goals business at the end of the day, right? And I think that's what we're here to talk about, mate. So for those who maybe don't know you, tell us a little bit about you and your story, Keith.
Yeah. Look, really simple story. I've been a professional speaker for the last 26 years, spoken to 1.6 million people, written 5 best-selling books published in 12 different languages. I talk about goals, how to actually achieve their goals faster, easier, and sooner. Now, that's where I am today. This is where I started. I dropped out of school twice. You got to be a special type of child to be able to do that, Jackson. So my mum got me my first job, which was at the local council as working in water supply and sewerage in the bowels of the organisation, so to speak. But I was motivated, Jackson. I worked my way up to the prestigious position of noxious weed inspector. Not this type of weed, and definitely not obnoxious, but the noxious weed inspector. And my boss come to me one day and he said, Keith, we'd like you to go. Now, you got to understand, as a council employee, Jackson, I wasn't that committed and dedicated. I used to sleep a couple of hours every day. My area included the beach, so I would often go down the beach looking for noxious weeds, and I'd have a bit of a snooze during the course of the day. And my boss came to me one day and he said, Keith, we'd like you to go on a week-long leadership program. And I thought he had rocks in his head because I definitely wasn't a leader. I was sleeping a couple of hours. I'd have, a couple of cream buns for morning tea. And then he said the magic words, you get a week off work with full pay. And I thought, you know what, maybe I'm a leader and I don't know it. And that was a program run by Rotary called Ryler, Rotary Youth Leadership Award. On the final day of this week-long program where they took, these 18 to 24-year-olds, I was 23 and a half years of age at the time, out in the bush. They said, we'd like you to write down 100 things you want to do in your lifetime. Now, you got to understand, I've had a whole week of people telling me I can be anything, do anything, have anything, and achieve anything. And I found a great tree, very shady, and I started writing my life to-do list. I wrote down 6 things and I stopped and I thought, shit, this is going to be the longest 90 minutes of my life. The 7th thing I wrote down was finish this list. And so over the next 6 weeks, I got to 100 and I started ticking those off, and I got really passionate and engaged about this whole concept of goal setting. Never heard of it before. I grew up on the farm. My mum and dad, we didn't talk about goals. We talked about trucks and tractors and horses and cattle. And then I went back the following year and I started talking to goals to the next group of people that came through. And 26 years ago, I turned that passion into a profession. And that's what I've been doing, traveling the world. As I said before, spoken in 39 different countries, and about how do I help people achieve their goals faster, easier, and sooner. Well, I mean, what's the opposite of that? Slower, harder, and never. So nobody wants that. So that's a real snapshot of where I am today.
Mate, that's brilliant. It's super inspiring. And look, there's so many similarities here. How I refer to this is that the vast majority of people are sitting in the passenger seat of their life.
Yeah,
and
lovely,
they're just
beautiful.
allowing opportunities to pass them by and allow life to happen around them. And the results or lack thereof in their life, of their experience,
is a byproduct of that passengership. And it's only once they get into the driver's seat and learn how to drive the bloody vehicle, the skies open and the heavens present themselves and all of these opportunities start unfolding. And it's an issue, right? Our parents don't talk about it. They didn't want to be the tall poppies, right? I remember my old man, he was a migrant from South America, and he goes, don't talk about goals because people will curse you. And it's all in this stigma. So why do you feel people have so much stigma around talking about goals, Keith? Where does this come from?
Well, I think there's a few things there, Jackson. The first is that I think a lot of people don't truly understand what a goal is.
Sure.
So, in society, there are 5 or 6 milestones that society place upon us. Here's the first milestone: get a good education, get a good job, find a partner, buy your first home, have some kids, succeed in your career, retire well, have enough money to either travel around the country or travel overseas. That's it. That's it. That's the society goal. So, what do people do? When they first get together, they say, well, let's buy a house. Or before anybody even gets together, okay, I'm going to buy a house. My parents said, that's the best asset I can have, blah, 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 blah. So people think that's goals. One of the things that I've done is help people, set and achieve now close to about 15 million goals, because we get them to write down 100 things they want to do in their lifetime. Now, I can get, and I don't say this arrogantly, Jackson, I can get anyone to 100 goals they want to achieve in their lifetime. Why? Because I've got a process and a system that says if I can ask you 25 questions and you can come up with 4 answers for each one of those questions, I can get you to 100 goals. And if you don't mind me sort of plugging that activity, go to keithabraham.com/resources. And the document is there for free. There's videos on my YouTube channel of actually how to do that. And when people say, I could never write down 100, I say, 100% I can get you. Now, here's the really interesting thing about this, Jackson, is that we did a research project and we got people to write their 100 goals down. So we had 1,500 people write down their 100 goals. And we said, send us their 100 goals. We're going to hold on to it. And in 3 years' time, we're going to send them back to you. And all you have to tell us is how many of the 100 you can tick off. So what was amazing about this is of the people that responded back to us, and it was close to 1,000 people responded back to us. By the way, here was some of the sub-conversations. Oh, I've forgotten all about that. Yes. You know what, Keith? Myself and my partner, we look at this every year. So there was this spectrum of, I forgot all about it too. We look at it every year. So here was the average. When you averaged up the 1,000 people that responded to us, 42 of the 100 goals had been ticked on. On average, in 3 years, people had been able to tick off the 42 of their 100 goals they wrote down. We left it and we came back 2 years later. So now it's 5 years. It went up to 71.
Wow.
Some of them were grand goals. Some of them were, lifetime dream career goals. Some of them was, go to South America for a holiday. Some of them were like, people go, oh, that'd be so easy to do. For those people, that was a challenge or difficult or whatever it might be. But so here's the serendipity. You and I both know that when we feel like we're making progress, we are, in essence, the best version of ourselves.
For sure.
Frustration creeps into ourselves when we feel like we're not making progress. And the reason why most people don't feel like they're making progress is because they don't have a vision for the future.
Yeah. It's stale. It's mundane, right? And one of my first mindset mentors said to me, Keith, as a human being, we are like a tree. We're either growing and thriving or rotting and dying. You need to pick one.
Yeah. Yeah, and goals, Jackson, is the wonderful catalyst to grow. Now, here is the gift of goals. It's not the achievement of the goals. It's the person that you become in pursuit of those goals. That's the gift. And just like in sport, we learn more from our defeats than we do from our victories. And in goals, we often learn more from the goals that we don't hit than the goals that we do hit. And let's face it, if it was easy, goals need to be a little bit challenging. If it was easy, we'd all be Olympians. We'd all be run marathons. So this is about the pursuit of those goals is a wonderful learning experience in itself. Now, you ask them the question, so why don't people do this? For some people, they don't know how. For other people, it's, but I'm not always going to be successful. So I'll live with the disappointment then rather than live with the challenge. And so when we work with people, one of the things that we often say to people is, you've seen my goal setting process. We get people to set goals very, very differently. So most people talk about SMART goals: specific, measurable, obtainable, realistic, tangible. That process is 37 years old. It was created by a group of engineers. Harvard wrote about it, blah, 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 blah. But here's what we know from the research that we've done over the last 20 years is that unless you have an emotional connection to your goal, in essence, you've got to have three things. You've got to have an emotional connection, a mental connection, and a physical connection. What does that look like in reality? Why, what, how, feel, think, do, heart, head, hands. When you combine all three, you become committed, compelled, and connected to that goal. And what do you need to be committed, compelled, and connected? So that you will do the uncomfortable, the inconvenient, and the unknown. And so when we get people to buy into that process and show them the process and the power of the emotional connection and what emotionally drives you, and we'll talk about this in a tick, is that helps propel them towards what's important, what matters, and what's going to make a difference to them.
It makes so much sense. And we encounter this all the time when we talk about money and finance, Keith.
Yes.
When people come to us, normally they come to us with a dollar figure. I want to be financially free. I want passive income. I want to buy that home. I want to pay it off. And they mistake the vehicle for the destination. It is not the money they want. It is the outcome that money provides them that they truly want. Right. And it's only once they get rid of the superficial, that societal pressure that they feel they should pursue because keeping up with the Joneses, and they actually get deeper into the significance that they find beyond the vehicle, that they can truly create the catalyst that they need to be able to be determined enough to do the work and go and endure the hardship, right? Because you're right, it is challenging.
Sorry, Jackson, I was just going to say, what we have to get people to understand is that, and one of the things I often talk about is we have to lean into hard. We have to embrace difficult, because on the other side of hard and difficult is joy.
Yes.
When you push through something, there is joy on the other side of it. And often people stop when it gets hard and when it gets difficult. And the only reason that you'll do the uncomfortable, the inconvenient, and the unknown is that if you have a big enough reason why. One of the things I often say to people is when the why becomes clear, the how becomes easy. But you have to have a big enough reason why to push through whatever the gully that you've got the bridge you have to get across to get to really what you want and to achieve the goals that most people will never experience.
And this is where true power is found. I think the biggest shift that I personally made was getting comfortable being uncomfortable.
Correct.
Because it's these situations, right, where when you're in the moment, you feel the world is caving in and the sky is falling and you're going to lose everything, and you've got that little voice in your head that's telling you that you're an idiot and you're a fraud and a failure.
Yes.
And then when you get through the other side of it and you look back on it, I'm sure anybody listening or watching this, when have you not been able to laugh at that situation?
Oh, 100%. You go, why did I build it up so much in a head? But this is the power of, shifting our belief. And most people are just not fully aware of how do you diminish doubt and how do you build belief. There's that lovely verse, doubt sees the darkest night, certainty sees the light of day. Doubt asked, who believes? And certainty answered, I believe in me. I believe. Now, to get on that cycle, what you've got to do, and it relates back to goals, is you have to set a goal. You have to then take action. And from that action, you get a result. Sometimes it's a great result. Sometimes it's an average result. Sometimes it's a learning experience, not an earning experience. But what the serendipity out of that is belief. And so that is the momentum cycle, because momentum defeats doubt. Momentum helps you move towards what you want. The last thing I talk to people about, and we don't even talk about it, is motivation. We talk always about creating momentum.
Yes.
And we get people on that cycle because once you have a stronger belief, and here's the belief that we have to understand, that you are worthy, deserving, capable, that you are enough, and you shift your internal language that you use and you say in your head from am I good enough? Am I worthy? Am I deserving? Am I capable? Am I a good leader? Am I a good parent? Am I a successful business person? We shift from am I, which is always about questioning yourself, which fuels doubt, to shifting the am I to I am. I am worthy. I am deserving. I am capable. I am enough. I am a good leader. I am a good parent. I am worthy of having $1 million in the bank. I am worthy of living in a great home. I am worthy of being financially independent. When we can shift that dialogue, and by the way, rather than questioning, that is affirming. That's about shifting the internal dialogue, which builds the belief that the catalyst for getting that ball rolling is the setting of the goal, taking the action, getting a result, going, geez, that worked out pretty well. The belief is I am worthy, I am deserving. And you get on that cycle, and that cycle spirals up.
Yes. I personally found the hardest step to take in anything is the first one, right? It's that breaking of the ice. And I've been doing a lot of work around behavioral finance, Keith. And one of the things there's been a lot of research on recently is this idea of this loss aversion bias. As human beings, we are intrinsically wired to guard our resources.
Yeah.
And our two most precious resources we have in a modern day society is our time and our money, and particularly our money. And when we're safe, we get to that position of comfort, we are going to feel the potential of a loss twice as significantly as the potential of a gain.
Correct.
So the way I look at it is, well, unless you're putting twice as much effort into your future planning and your goal setting, your default action will be to sit on the fence.
Correct. It is far easier to do nothing and to be safe. But safe doesn't mean secure. And so when people really start to get their head around, I love that quote from, Dr. Joe Dispenza, you want to have a vision for the future, not a memory of the past. And so often we are making decisions about our future from a past self or past experience.
Yeah, this kind of traumatized past self typically, right?
Yeah, 100%. Oh, I tried that. The classic Jackson that I hear often when I'm speaking at conferences is people go, oh, we tried that once. And you go, geez, you tried it once? Did you really give it a red hot go? I mean, people go, I tried it once and it didn't work. Well, I'm glad you didn't stop trying to walk once when you were a kid and you fell out, A over apex, and you never tried it again. I mean, it's so, one of the things I say to people is tenacity wins every race. I'm not the smartest guy. I told you I dropped out of school twice and all that sort of stuff. So, but here's my superpower, tenacity. I'm tenacious. I hang in there. I don't have to be the first to cross the line, but I could very well be the last to cross the line, but I will cross the line. It's tenacity wins every race.
And here lies the biggest issue, I feel, particularly in the society that we are in, where these impossible standards are placed upon us with the kind of the social media, Instagram movement of this ridiculous perfectionist pursuit that people have that set themselves up to fail. And what I feel is that people place so much significance on a single decision getting them to their goals, causes them like that paralysis by fear. And there's never one decision that you're going to make in isolation.
No. And it's never one. It's never one pathway. And you're 100% right about the perfectionism that social media, like as wonderful as you and I use it to leverage our expertise and to build communities and to create connections. The really downside of it, take away, cyberbullying, all that sort of stuff, but the really downside of it is people are looking at, oh, this person has a perfect life. I want to be like that person. And, I always think about one of my clients, I follow them on, Insta, and there was this beautiful photo of her and a partner and her kids in Hawaii. The sun was setting, they had cocktails in their hands, and it was this beautiful photo. And when I caught up with her not long after that holiday break at a conference, and I said, hey, I love that photo you posted. on Instagram. It just really special, and what a beautiful family. She said, Keith, to be perfectly honest, 2 hours before that, I was ready to stab my husband in the neck with a knife. And you sort of go, people take that, that must be their life always. No.
Yeah, it's crazy.
100%, yet that it all of a sudden becomes the default position of, I tried launching this product and I made sure everything was perfect and it didn't work. I've only got 1,000 followers from that campaign or whatever. And so woo, pump the brakes. It could be, it's 100 different things, tried 7 different ways. And then all of a sudden, you become the overnight success after 10 years.
Exactly, mate. I was lucky enough to have a mentor who really helped me with overcoming this idea of being a perfectionist. Yes. And she said to me, wow, you've got to fail fast and you've got to fail forward. Yes. And I remember in the context of public speaking, I had this speaking engagement and I put so much effort into creating this keynote presentation, and I turned up and there was one person. And the heart sunk. I'm like, shit, no one likes me, no one wants to hear me. But I flipped it straight away. I go, no, I have the perfect opportunity here to give this my all to this one person audience, to deliver as much value as I can, because I can change their life. And it's just it's just a difference in perspective. I think Confucius said, he who said he can and he who said he can't are both right.
Yeah, 100%. Look, one of my early speaking opportunities was, and I was doing this presentation for free because it was for an association and a bit of a promise of saying, look, we're going to put some great people in the room. There's probably going to be some wonderful conference opportunities. I call them profile presentations, because you're profiling your skills and your expertise and you're giving value. And I said, well, how many people do you expect to be there? Oh, there's probably going to be about 35. And I go, yeah, fantastic. This is great. There'll be some great opportunities there. So I got, my 35 handouts together, rocked up there early, and 6 people. A little bit better than one, but it was 6 people. And I went, oh, what a waft, Tam. What a waste of time and money. And I said, no. Like you, same mindset. 6 is better than 5. 5 is better than 4. And I'll give. Now, get this. I'll book 7 conferences out of those 6 people.
Wow.
One person, no. 2 people booked, 2 conferences each. There's 4, and the other, a couple of people, one booked one. And all of a sudden I've got, geez, this is a great conference. Now, I've spoken to conferences where there's been 1,000 people who haven't booked a job. And so the thing there, it's about just taking whatever happens to you and saying, okay, what do I do next then? What do I do next?
This is a great segue here, mate.
And that's the same for like people will have some ups and they'll have some downs in their financial life. And you go, okay, so what do I do next?
One foot in front of the other, right?
Correct. Okay, we start again. Look, I've been in business now for 26 years and our business has grown, but there's also been, give me an example. So, and this story, I think I've shared this with you before. So I speak at 100 conferences a year. I'm in London coming back. COVID, this thing called, coronavirus, is starting to creep through London. I rock back home and all of a sudden this is a thing. And so in the space of 10 days, I have 70 conferences cancelled, which is my, 70% of my whole year. So, and just being absolutely transparent with you and your listeners and your viewers, I rocked backwards and forwards in the corner for a day. I just shattered. And I got on the drink for 2 days. It was fantastic. It was like, it was great. And then I said, what did Churchill say? Don't let a great disaster go to waste. And I went, right, okay. I've never done virtual before. I've never, had that opportunity to do that. I've never bought into it. I've just gotten on a plane and gone wherever in the world to work with people. And I said, okay, I'm going to learn virtual. And I'm going to create an experience because I think this COVID thing is going to be around for a while. And so I watched 40 hours of videos of YouTubers and going, okay, how do they do that? How do they flick from one camera? How do they do that? And I started with one camera and a flip chart, and now I've got a full professional studio, and just so those people who are watching, so we deliver slides here. We've got overhead situations here. We can put everything on full screen if we want to, and or messages or whatever it might be, and we can do a whole stack of stuff. And all of a sudden. And the other thing I did, which I thought, less about me, more about people. So I made 200 phone calls to clients around the world and said, how best can I be of service? I don't want a fee. How best can I be of service? And in the following 3 months, I rebooked 101 virtual presentations. I delivered that year. I did 131 presentations. 101 were virtual, and 30 of them were in person before I actually COVID hit. And what was really interesting is even some of my prospects who said, "You're the only person that's reached out to us and say, are you okay? And we haven't used you yet, but we're going to. And you're not going to do it for free. We're paying you." And so I just decided to make a decision to become, to take what was, the lemons and make lemonade, using that old saying. And I think that's the thing that most people have got to understand is the thing I said to myself, apart from, getting on the juice, I just said, okay, so what's next? I got to learn virtual. Okay, what's next? I got to reach out to clients. What's next? I got to work out how I can make this experience better than me, one camera and a flip chart.
It's really powerful, mate. It reminds me, I did a speaking engagement not that long ago, and afterwards there was a fella in the room, very unassuming fella, came up to me afterwards, and he wanted to tell me something, and he said, look, I wanted to share something with you. When I was a kid, my old man gave me a piece of advice. He was a truck driver, and he was trying to teach me how to drive a truck. Yeah. And tonight, listening to your presentation, I finally realized the metaphor for life that he was trying to teach me. And I don't think my dad knew what he was teaching me and the broader context of it. But he said, son, when you're a truck driver, the only thing that you can do is control the space in front of you.
Beautiful.
Nothing else you can do. And I think this is the epitome of that. I think it's epitome for life. It's a great metaphor for everything that we do.
Yeah.
We can doom and gloom about things that are completely outside of our control and have a pity party for one, or we can control the space in front of us.
Yeah. And it's so true. The thing that, the thing that's always driven me is control of controllables. And I learned that from Toyota, the work that I've done globally with Toyota over the last, 22 years now. It's just control the controllables. And I just went, okay, I can't control if borders are going to close. I can't control if people are going to cancel. But I can control what I do next. And what I did next was, okay, let's people are still going to need to engage, enthuse and energize their people. People are going to need a goal. And so that's where it's moved to them. And by the way, and this isn't for everybody, but one of the best things that has happened to our business has been COVID, because I can now present to anybody, anywhere, at any time in the world. And to put things into perspective, about 3 weeks ago, I had 5 conferences in 5 days. I had a conference in person on the Gold Coast. I had a conference in Paris on the Tuesday night. I had a conference back on the Gold Coast. I had a conference in Brisbane, and then I had a conference in Melbourne. And I thought, you know what? I would have never been able to do any of those other conferences, because I would have gotten on a plane, flown to Paris, done the workshop, and had a couple of days in London and come home, and that was the week. I could have never done all those other events, and so all of a sudden the ability to, I think I might have shared this with you before, Jackson. It took me, 24 years to present in 36 countries. It took me during COVID, 12 months to present in 39 countries.
Wow.
It was amazing. It was amazing. But on the flip side of that, I have a number of colleagues in the speaking industry who went and got a job, who just haven't recovered, who never embraced virtual. And for me, it's another string to my bow.
For sure. You've just got to embrace that change, right? I think that comes down to that tenacity, the perseverance, the determination. You'll find a way. Yeah. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, and we talk about change. Everyone gets a little, gun shy of change because change is uncomfortable and it's inconvenient. But one of my mentors said to me that stop talking about change and start talking about becoming. So I didn't need to change to become a virtual presenter. I started to become a virtual presenter. And so I think it just takes the sting out of it a little bit on what do we need to become to step into our potential? What is it that we need to become to be financially secure? Not what do we need to change, what do we need to become? Because the one thing that you and I both know is that we go there mentally before we go there physically.
Yes.
And so you have to go there mentally first. You have to have a wealth mentality first before you become wealthy. You have to have great confidence. You have to develop your confidence to become confident. And so often when we're talking to people about achieving their goals, it's really the part is about going there first mentally. What do I have to do to elevate my mindset? What do I have to do to lift my skill set? Because when I do that, it creates a vacuum that then brings the goal closer to you.
It makes a lot of sense. And I've gone on this journey in terms of speaking. You may not believe this and others don't necessarily believe it, but I'm a deep introvert. And the idea of public speaking used to terrify me.
I get it.
And I realized that if I wanted to create the level of impact that I truly desire in this world and leave a legacy that lives beyond me, then it is my duty to inspire people through my thoughts and my knowledge and my frameworks. The only way I could do that if I grow a pair and get out there and spread the word far and wide. Yeah. My vision was to become a world-class public speaker. It's still got a long way to go. It's an endless pursuit, but it's one of these things that I had to step into. And so many people are fearful. And we work with a lot of clients who have amazing IP, have phenomenal stories that are hugely impactful, that can change lives. Yes. Yet they're so afraid to step into that, or if they have stepped into it, they don't feel like they're good enough to become world-class. Now, you've got a system around this. Do you want to give us a little bit of a snapshot of how you take people?
Love to. And look, I know exactly where you're coming from because when I first went on that Rotary camp, they said, well, you know what you have to do? You got to come back from that camp and do a presentation to the Rotary Club about what you got out of it. And I went, oh, I can't do that. They said, well, that's just part of the process, mate. You got to do that. They've paid for you to go there. They've invested in you. You got to honour that. And I got to tell you, I just packed my pants. I mean, I was, I was so. But on the flip side of that, I so wanted to share the knowledge of this concept called goal setting. I thought, well, if I want to share it, I have to present it. And, I went on, went to Toastmasters for a year and then, I went back and I delivered that presentation back to the next group the following year. And because I didn't want to have the nervousness and the sense of, oh, this is terrible. And obviously over the last 26 years, I've had 5 professional speaker coaches work with me on a varying different areas. And so about 6 months ago, Jackson, I've been doing this for 26 years. I'm still, booked extensively and, exceptionally high and spoken in front of 10,000. I talked about the 6 people, but I've spoken in front of 10,000 people and 4s and 5s and 6s and 7s. And that happens on a yearly basis type of thing. So about 6 months ago, I started talking about, how do I help people get on stages? How do I help, coaches or people who've got a message to get on stages and share their message with their ideal clients, or to build their profile, or to build their authority, or to leverage their IP, or to, if they're already doing some speaking, how do I just generate a greater income from it? And so I created a program called Get On More Stages, because I just had this love to, and this might sound a bit weird, but I love speaking to speakers about speaking. So I created this program called Get On More Stages, and if it's okay, I'd love to share just a model that I use around this. So let me do that, and let me do something funky here. There we go. And so I reckon if people want to get on more stages, there's three things they need to master. The first is they've got to build their profile. They've got to build their profile that they become the go-to person. And how do they do that? Well, identify, because remember I said before, you can speak to anybody anywhere in the world now. So you can niche yourself so much. So who's the ideal audience that you want to speak in front of? Maybe it's kids, maybe it's retirees, maybe it's people who are mechanical engineers and who work for themselves and are earning less than $1 million, but you got a strategy that you can help them earn more than $1 million. So who's your ideal prospect? The second is, how do you position yourself as the go-to person? How do you position yourself? And more importantly, how do you position yourself so people see the commercial value of what you do? To build your profile, you need a process. And your process is all about making sure that you are reaching out to people, 3 R's, reaching out to people, that it's robust, so it happens all the time, because one of the things I learned early on in my speaking career, Jackson, I went and saw lots of people and had lots of coffee meetings with people, and guess what? I got opportunities and I delivered those opportunities. But as I was delivering those opportunities, I stopped marketing, and all of a sudden my income went up and the income went down. And you only learn that lesson once. And then the other R, which I've learned over the last probably 15 years, is there's a rhythm to what we do. I plant seeds 6 months and then I water them through articles and videos before I harvest them, like we've just done that over the last 2 months. So profile is really important. Is this too much detail, Jackson?
Fantastic, mate.
Okay,
Love
cool.
it.
The other piece of the puzzle is pipeline. And pipeline is about having conversations with people that are of a sales nature. But I never feel like I'm selling anything. I just go and say, what's your challenge and where do you want to take people? What do you want your people to stop doing? And what's the key outcome? And we have a conversation, because from that conversation, I can then convert that conversation into, I think I can help you. I think what I'd like to share with you is, how do you create engaged, enthused and energized people? And people go, well, that's exactly what we need. That's the commercial conversation. And then from that, and the one thing that we've always done is, remember I said about being tenacious, is that I'm consistent. And so this is about staying in touch with people when they're not doing business with you. And so I don't think I've shared this story with you, but one of my clients I stayed in touch with for 16 years. It was 16 years of no. Now it was never no, piss off, we don't want to ever hear from you. It was just no, not this year. No, we're bringing in somebody from the US. No, no, I think we're going to go use some internal people. So 16 years of no. And I'd always check, do you want me to stay in touch? Oh, yeah, stay in touch with us, And I thought, okay. Now, the 16th year, I get a phone call from them. They say, can you speak at this conference? We've got 1,200 people coming to Brisbane. You'd be a good fit. Can you speak? So that was about 7 years ago. Now, they're probably invested with me from a speaking point of view, from product sales point of view, from licensing material, from taking some of my books and publishing them in 10 different languages, about 1.2 million.
Beautiful.
Now, I'm glad I didn't give up in the 15th year. So, tenacity wins every race. So, but here's what the point was. If I consistently stay in touch with people, I'm going to wear people down the nicest possible way. And sooner or later, they're going to say, let's give them a go.
Yeah.
The next piece of the puzzle, and by the way, this is the same thing around, compound interest. This is the same thing about putting a little bit away and just doing it consistently. Everything is about, consistency. But how many of us, Jackson, are consistently inconsistent? So,
a lot.
The product. Now, often people say, oh, you're talking about a book or an online course. No, I'm talking about you. You're the product. Your presentation is the product. And so the key for you to get on more stages is making sure that you are remarkable. So your content's remarkable, your context of how you deliver it, your confidence is remarkable, because when you are remarkable, you become referable. And when you become referable, your bookings become recurring. In essence, you get recurring revenue and you get recurring bookings. And so the thing I do is I talk to people about how do they get on more stages. You've got to master those three. If there's one thing that I've learned, it's mastering those three. And the thing I can tell you about that as well, Jackson, is there's those three parts we just went through. There's the 9 things that we just went around. And what I've just created is there's 81 different ideas on how to do that. And so it's helping people to say, what's the right strategy for you? You know, 'cause some people got a great presentation or they're a great presenter, but they don't know how to get on, they don't know how to get on more stages, or they don't know how to leverage their IP. And so, that's what I've been helping people do. We've got a couple of groups up and running. It's a great program. I've just had 2 coaching sessions today with people on the program, and 2 vastly different conversations. One was around the crafting of their keynote, so it's just the really killer keynote, and the other was around leveraging their IP into larger, into how do I sell. A bit of the work that I've done is how do you take one presentation and then leverage it to sell a $500, $600, $1 million program into an organisation. And and everything we do, Jackson, I'm very process orientated as much as, I'll probably, tell stories and have a few laughs and make fun of myself. But in essence, there's a process to everything, because if there's a process, and I've learned this from Lexus, is if there's a process, there's consistency. And if there's consistency, it's very easy to teach that to other people.
Well, that's the common thread. That's what allows you to be funny and engaging, because that's what you can change and craft that adds the spice and the sizzle into everything else. So, mate, I can see it. It's magic in motion. I love it. And I think it's a super powerful system. So, mate, we've covered a lot here. There's a couple of parts to this. So the GoalDriver piece, if people are interested in understanding more about the goal setting and your philosophy around that, do you want to share a little bit about that and how people can find out more?
Yeah, so, I mentioned before about you got to have an emotional, mental and physical connection. So that was the epiphany I got about 15 years ago. And then I started a research project, and that research was around, if there was a premise of how do I help people get from point A to point B faster, easier and sooner, how do people do that? And it was, the difference is the emotional connection. Of the 135 different emotions you can experience as an adult, 64 of them are positive. Of those 64, they break down into what I call 8 goal drivers. And so I started working with this about 15 years ago. About 9 years ago, we really started to hone in on this and say, well, how would you change a way that people set goals to be more emotionally based than what based and how based? Not that you don't need those pieces, but it's far more, if you've got a big enough reason why, which is the emotional reason, you are a hell of a lot more committed, compelled and connected to the goal. So once we established what those 8 goal drivers was, well, how do people, and the original version was, well, Jackson, how do you want to feel this year? And so people would say, and there's 8 drivers, people want to feel successful, people want to feel purposeful, people want to feel inspired, people want to feel happy, people want to feel relaxed, people want to feel confident, people want to feel respected, and people want to feel organised. And so we started saying, okay, so what does that look like? And then about 4 years ago, I started creating a diagnostic tool called GoalDrivers. And the diagnostic tool, as people go online, they take about 5 to 7 minutes. They ask 10 sets of questions. And what pops out the other side for your viewers and listeners is they get a 6-page report, gives them 12 insights on what accelerates their progress, what slows them down, and how to strengthen their determination. It tells them exactly what their emotional driver is and the characteristics on why that, their natural characteristics. Now, unlike a personality profiling tool, this tells you not your personality, but your emotional driver. And so I'm happy to share the website. It's called mygoaldriver.com. And you can go in there, complete and do the free profile. You get a 6-page report, tells you about the overall 8. It'll tell you what your driver is. It'll tell you what you need to stop doing in your life, what you need to start doing. It'll tell you what your greatest fear is. It'll tell you what your characteristics are. It'll tell you the characteristics you need to strengthen. It's a wonderful, wonderful tool. And if there's people who have got a team of people, it's a great catalyst for a conversation. Now, there is a paid version as well. I'm not, if you want to buy the paid version, it's $87. But that'll also give you 135 different insights. It'll give you the 36 performance accelerators that you can implement to accelerate and elevate your progress. But it also tells you how to coach, how you love to be coached and mentored. And that's, you and I have talked about this. This is the real genius and the power of it, because not everybody wants to be coached the way you like to be coached. And so when you know that the different strokes for different folks, you can connect so much quicker and more effectively with people. And that's what the GoalDriver gives you. So mygoaldriver.com. Oh yeah, you've done it. And it's, what was your experience with it?
It was fantastic. I've done a lot of behavioural profiles and psychometric testing over the years, and it was the most actionable and implementable that I have done. So we're talking about implementing it across our team to replace some other tools. Nice. So a bit of a shameless plug for you. So guys, I highly recommend it. Go to the free version. I highly advocate the paid version because it gives you that much deeper insights. Yeah. It's a phenomenal resource.
Yeah, thank you, mate. And look, and it is one of those. And when you get the paid version, there are 12 different resources you get with it, like a video that explains each one of the drivers. It gives you the worksheets to plan out your next 90 days, to go through the GoalDriver goal setting process, which is step by step by step. So there's a whole lot of different resources that you can use to be able to, once again, accelerate, elevate, just take away remove the roadblocks that are slowing you down. So I appreciate you giving it a plug, mate. And look, for those people who are really interested in the speaking side of things, you can send me an email, really simple, ka@keithabraham.com.au. Always happy to have a chat with you. Or you can just go to the other website, which is about the speaking side, is morestages-higherfees.com, and that's all about the Get On More Stages program.
Beautiful. We'll include those links in the show notes. I know there's plenty of people in our network, in our client base, that are really going to value from getting access to your genius, mate. So I appreciate you carving out the time. It's been super valuable. It's been a great conversation, packed full of huge insights. So guys, make sure that you implement some of these ideas. It's a good idea in theory. It remains exactly that, just a good idea until you put it into action. Keith, appreciate you making the time, mate, and look forward to catching up again soon.
Thanks, Jackson. Appreciate the opportunity. Cheers, mate.
See you, mate.